Extra awesome to hear that song, the lead-in song for Talkin Torque here. That's Fight On by our friend Cylinder, who'll be joining us here in just a few minutes. Um, I love that song from the first time I heard it. Welcome to another Thursday, everybody. Um, Obviously, if you're in the Edmonton area, this is a very, very tumultuous week. We just found out very, very suddenly and very abruptly that our local sports station, TSN 1260, was pulled off the air mid-show, as five other stations were across Canada. 1,300 people laid off by Bell Media. Normally, this would be my lead in, but because we've got friends from Cylinder waiting in the background here, I'm going to get to Nick here right away, and we'll jump in, to the chaos, and the shock from a bunch of our friends. I mean, I did a segment on TSN Radio the last 5 years. I was actually surprised to realize that it went that far back. But let's start with happier times here. Bring in my good friend and lead guitar player of the band formerly known as Cylinder, Mr. Nick Boyd. How are you doing, Nick?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Colin.
Yeah, you bet. Where am I catching you here today?
I'm at work.
It looks like you're in a garage. Is that how your office is set up there?
Yeah, that's kind of our style. It's a man cave.
Yeah. So you're in Scotts Valley. You're in Santa Cruz. Where's your office?
We're in Santa Cruz. We're somewhat in the heart of it, Midtown area, near the off the downtown zone.
Yeah, most people, I guess, when they think of Santa Cruz, are going to think of skateboards, and for people who don't know, I mean, awesome coastline down there.
Yeah, it's definitely the skater surfer culture. Like the big company, Santa Cruz Skateboards is here, and so much of the surfing industry started here. O'Neill, so forth. So
And somehow that hippie culture produced one of my personal favorite bands, and a genre that you came known for, but some really, really heavy rock and roll with your previous band Cylinder.
yeah, all walks of life are welcome here. That's the way I would describe it. It's keep Santa Cruz weird is one of the big slogans. That there's a big variety to life here. It's not one way or another. So
It's always interesting. I've got to know you a little bit, or fairly well, depending on how you want to define it, over the last, whatever it's been, 15 years.
yeah,
But you're personally always great to sit back with a beer, just kind of talk about life, lots of philosophical questions. And then all of a sudden, this other dude gets an electric guitar in his hands, and hearing some of the lyrics from some of the songs you've written, there's a little bit of anger that's stored up inside there.
sure. I mean, that's in the mix. I wouldn't just chalk it up to one emotion. But you're right. In general, there's an aggressive nature to myself and the other musicians that I play with. I just gravitate quickly towards those who either bang on the drums severely, loudly, or want to play heavy or fast riffs, or they want to throw in a scream, or they want to be aggressive in nature.
Yeah.
That just aligns with me and the people that I tend to play with.
Yeah, I mean, it's great music. Again, we've got a mutual friend, Rich Engel. Rich was, he'll take credit for teaching you how to play guitar.
Yeah, and I would give him that 100%.
You would? I would probably, I obviously wasn't there, but I'd probably boil it down to he was somewhat influential in your formative years.
Yeah, when I had interest in it, I was just uh, I would I was just trying to figure it out through tablatures that you could buy, in the local music store, and of the bands or the songs that I liked. And a tablature really doesn't show you any technique. It just shows you numbers on a string grid pattern, and you're not really getting anywhere quickly. So self-teaching yourself certainly comes with its drawbacks, mostly being the time that it would take to learn. And so thankfully my father had a relationship with Rich, your friend, and was able to connect us. Rich, being a passionate guitar player, um, I think probably just wanted to pay it forward or contribute, you know, to someone, at that time it was me who was, uh, passionately trying to find a means to learning how to play. So it was cool. I appreciate him, and I appreciate all the support you've given over the years. So thank
Oh,
you.
well, I mean, that support is nothing. I mean, when you play music that people wanna listen to, the rest takes care of itself. But, I kinda wanna go back to those early days because, again, I don't wanna turn this into a Rich, show. Rich needs to come on and, I wanna have him on for a entirely separate, show where we can kinda split our interests with work with our differences in musical taste. But I have
Yeah.
to imagine, because I heard a lot of the stories of this young kid Nick, who he was teaching, and again, this goes back a number of years, probably 15, 20 years, where Rich is talking about how you just wanted to learn every Metallica lead, and he was trying to push into other genres and trying to get you away from that. Now,
Yeah. No,
that
he likes the butt rock, stuff, the 80s glam. Uh, and I just was all about thrash metal at that time. So yeah. No,
probably
but it
not a
still
lot's
works. It's
changed.
all relative. It's all relevant, and you're just a different approach, but a lot of the same, chord progressions, types of scale work that you're using, all that. That's all super applicable to one another. So
Yeah, so most musicians will state music for them was a refuge. They were having a trouble in their life. Not a lot of people get into music just because they like music. It seems like um they're trying to get away from something. I was a musician as a kid. I played trumpet. I was in my high school, my junior high and high school bands. Um I got really big into it for a lot of years. I think I at one point I was in 3 music classes, at the same time, like in the same semesters while I was in high school, because I tried to cram as many credits as I could through.
yeah.
I mean, I was even in choral. I was singing. I couldn't sing, you know, I can't sing anything,
Hey,
but
me
5
neither.
5
Yeah.
credits was 5 credits, so I took it. But, we played, we got an extra credit, a 5 credit. For us, that was a full-time course, a 5 credit music class with our jazz band, that we would show up to school at 7 a.m. Our school normally started at I think just before 9 o'clock. So we would show up at 7 a.m. 3 days a week and would play for like an hour to 90 minutes. And that got me extra credits. But how was it that you fell into music? Was it that refuge, or was it just you saw someone doing something that you really dug, and you just wanted to go down that same road?
Yeah, I was dating a girl in high school, kind of my high school sweetheart, so to speak. And she played guitar, but she loved punk bands like Green Day. And I remember seeing her play. She played for me, and I was like just immediately intrigued by it. And my love for music was ramping up. It was my refuge. Music was just a refuge in general, especially aggressive music, because I think that there was a lot of angst in my adolescence. So it was the outlet for me. And then the idea of being able to play one of the songs that I loved, again, which was a refuge, uh, was just a natural interest. So it was born from that, and it was, kind of an odd, uh, taking the guitar, borrowing her guitar, and learning, and then and having Rich teach me, and all of a sudden I'm quickly progressing, and went from being her thing, to in our relationship to being my thing, and I started getting in bands, and it was like some jealousy, I guess, at some level, but yeah, that is the real pull or draw, is the refuge or the sanctuary that it provides, that music gives, and also just a kind of a reassurance in some way that what your emotions are, what you're feeling, is shared in the world,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's comforting, in some deep way. So
Yeah, and without getting too personal, what were you seeking refuge from, or was it like just general teenage angst, or was it, was something going on and
yeah, I don't know. I certainly don't think it was one thing. It was probably a big melting pot of multiple aspects of adolescence. Um, you know, and I couldn't do team sports. I would get in physical altercations, at that time of my life. I remember charging
really?
a mound as a high school baseball player and being suspended for fighting with our own pitcher, who I was at that time, who had beamed me on purpose. So
Why
I
was
feel,
your pitcher throwing at you?
because I just, at that time, I wasn't going to take shit from nobody, and I
Yeah.
really didn't fear much. I didn't fear physical altercation at all. And so, if somebody wanted to bully me in any fashion, I was ready to stand up and be like, no, you're not going to do that here. But so yeah, that led to me falling in love with skateboarding and other kind of more independently driven athletics and sports.
Yeah.
Things that I didn't have to be with a team or other people. Uh, and music also is that, in a way, because I could just play the guitar by myself. The whole interest of bands, though, started to progress just naturally, and being in a band, and then it's a smaller, tighter. Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
It's a smaller, tighter group, so it's kind of like a band of brothers, versus a big team where there's a lot of inner competition that goes on, and so forth. So that worked well for me too. Uh, but yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll tell. I have a similar story when I played baseball as a kid. So, I'll acknowledge, and I've said on this show and I've said on other media that I have no relationship with my father. I'll never speak to the man again because I have very personal reasons. But when I was a kid, he really pushed me into baseball, and I sucked at it, and I really hated it. Like, I didn't have any camaraderie with my teammates because I was an awkward little pipsqueak and I had nothing. And my dad didn't, he's got the same temperament as I do. He's got no patience for anything. So he couldn't coach, but to stay somewhat connected, he decided to get certified as an umpire. And he was hyper aware, and I don't think he gave a shit if people perceived that he was cutting me a break, which he never ever ever would. He called things so tight on me, and I was a terrible hitter. I
Uh-huh.
was terrible at everything. The only thing I ever wanted to do was pitch, and they would never let me do it. So I was in the batter's box one night, and this pitcher throws a pitch, and I mean, it's 6 inches outside, and he calls me on a strike. And I just look back, and I don't have to say anything. And he throws another pitch to the same spot outside, strike two. And I look back at him again, and I give him another look. And then he throws the same pitch, strike three. And I look back at him. I said, "Go fuck yourself." And he says, "You're out of the game." And I
You're out of
said,
the game.
Oh yeah. Oh, he
Look
pitched
out,
me. Well, of
man.
course, I told an umpire to go fuck himself,
Uh,
and he says, "You're out of the game." I said, "Okay, I'll see you at home." I went. I checked the bat in in the bullpen, and I walked home from where we were playing baseball in my small town.
nice.
I've got to tell that story a few times, and it's still for me. I mean, it's really a story about me, and obviously the show isn't about me. We need to make it about all of our guests, but the idea that you're getting into fights with your own teammates,
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to, and but I want to go back because now you mentioned your high school girlfriend and how you started picking it up. Did
Yeah.
you starting to become moderately proficient as a guitar player? Did that help your relationship, or did that kind of lead to the end of it?
Oh, I don't know if that was really a contributing factor to the health or the lack of health in the relationship, but yeah, there was some there was a moment that's comical to me that there was some envy or jealousy about me taking it on more as an identity than she was. I guess somehow it all swapped over.
Gotcha. Do you want to share that, or
What's that?
you said there was a comical moment?
Oh no, I just think it's comical the whole
Oh, okay,
thing.
fair enough.
I wouldn't call it anything serious or a major event worthy note.
So obviously when you start to play, the idea is you always want to get better, and it's all like, I mean, I've started to kind of try and learn how to play a little bit on a guitar, and I would never even call myself a guitar player, even though when I really 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 try hard, I can probably play like 2 to 3 chords without messing it up too badly, back to back to back. And I've
Yeah.
played the intro to Foo Fighters Everlong fairly successfully. I think if I practice that, but that doesn't qualify me as a guitarist. Um, at some point, where did you realize that you had the performing instinct? Because going from learning how to play to wanting to be like, okay, if you're playing with your buddies in a garage, it's one thing, but you usually get into a band because you want to perform, and that's performing is not the same thing as playing.
Yeah, I think that was a part of the motivation was to, I think it was seeing bands live. You see a band live, a band that you love, and you're in a room or venue that has thousands of people all gathered to hear and watch you perform. I just was fascinated by that experience, and just was like, man, I want to do that. I want to be somebody who's commanding an audience like this, or a part of this leading of this type of a gathering. I think that was probably a big motivator. Yet another major motivator was the fact that I was writing my own material, and I just had natural interest in making a band around material because I was proud of it, and I felt like this riff is good, and it could stand up to the other riffs that I'm hearing written on bands that are noteworthy. And so I guess part of me felt like I had confidence in my voice of what I was trying to do, and it just naturally progressed into you know wanting to be in a band with those two major factors. I'm sure there's more factors involved in that, but
Yeah,
those
but
are two that
like as a kid, were you a performer? Were you like a
no.
smart ass, lippy, I mean, I kind of had that where I always wanted to tell jokes, and I always loved making people laugh. But
No, I
yeah,
was shy. I was extremely shy, and even the idea of public speaking, or there's a part of me that's petrified by that. And now that I'm managing a business, with 20 something employees, when I have to speak to, it's even like I still am dealing with that petrified feeling that comes initially. Obviously, the more you do it, the more you force yourself through the fear, you start to build you start to adapt and build a certain tolerance and kind of understand the emotions that are going on there, and you're able to kind of tuck them to the side. And so I've definitely grown comfortable, and certainly playing live for all the years that I have helped in that fashion. But there's actually nothing more vulnerable or raw than having a microphone and speaking in front of people. That's why I have a lot of respect for anyone who chooses to sing. That's a very kind of naked, vulnerable, uh, very all eyes on you. There's like a certain level of nerves that you have to be able to handle or naturally enjoy, I guess. Um, and for me, it's always been a big struggle and a hard learning curve and a challenge to overcome fear.
Yeah, it's too bad we had Shane lined up, Shane Geslin. Personal situation came up here. We get a text a few minutes before we go live, but he has such a powerful voice, and I might be misremembering, but I got to watch you guys jam one night in your studio there in I think it's technically Scotts Valley where you guys were playing, or somewhere between Scotts Valley and Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And I remember Shane just being this 5 foot fuck all. He was probably a little bit taller than that, but he wasn't a really big guy.
No.
And this voice that is able to come out of this, he's not a fat guy. Got a very powerful frame, but a
Yeah.
relatively short guy. It was just super impressive when I got to see that in
That's
person.
cool. Yeah. No, I mean they're the front man. They are the voice that speaks to the audience. I mean the music's kind of laying a landscape of what emotion or a story, kind of laying the landscape to the story of a song, um, and the backdrop. But that the singer is walking you through that landscape, is giving you the spearhead of what's connecting you to the song.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a totally, as I've grown into bands, and been with different singers, just the the poetry aspect, having to put words together and tell a story, but put them in a way that is kind of more interesting, and the play on how you rhyme or how you um, play with cadence and all these little things to create catches and hooks and melodies that complement the music, and there's so many aspects that the average person wouldn't quite understand, but when you're around it enough, it's quite the art to be able to sing. And it's not your instrument is your voice box, your vocal cords.
Yeah.
And it's your voice is also something that can go out. You have to learn techniques to use your voice in a way that makes it last. So you're on stage, if you're playing for an hour and a half set, you're not blown out 30 minutes in. You have to be able to adjust your technique to where you can make the long haul. And as a guitarist, I could play all night. There ain't nothing about my body that's gonna wear out. My fingers will keep rolling. So
Yeah, you guys were pretty it's heavy music. Again, you guys being Cylinder, I know you've done, projects since then, and I want to start jumping into a few tunes here before I really get to some of my better questions. But you're okay if we play a little bit and
sure.
maybe get some of the behind the scenes, and I want to make sure we include some of this because most of my audience is Canadian, so they won't have had a lot of chance to hear Cylinder here. So
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna pick this one first, just a little bit heavier. This is Can't Surrender. There's that heavy drum you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just awesome. The heavy drum you're talking about, I mean, I could listen to this stuff all day long. Obviously gets a little bit heavier when it gets to the chorus. Pretty heavy theme. Um, Back in the day, where did that come from? The idea of Can't Surrender.
That's all Shane. That particular group, um, the song title and lyric content was pretty much exclusive to Shane. Um, but a lot of our message or his message, it's one of those things where the singer is still going to get feedback from the group,
Right.
and what content you're choosing to sing about is going to get uh, criticized, constructively, hopefully. But we kind of started out with a mishmash of different uh, topics or content, ideas, and some of it was more of the the struggle of life, or the more venting of the challenges that are being faced for life, and some of the maybe the depression or misery that you can go through at times. And that's a natural thing to want to vent out.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful experience when you're going through a darker time or a negative kind of mindset gets kind of stuck on in a rut. And it can be very helpful to vent that out, to get you to a positive place. But as we progressed in the band, we all kind of wanted a message that was more about overcoming or rising above the challenge of life. And that's what Can't Surrender is certainly the message, as other songs kind of allude to the same type of message or content, is about not giving up. It's about uh, putting up the good fight. That's kind of what life is, to a large extent, is enjoying the fight that it is, the journey that we have.
So
So
when these songs start getting, presented to the band, surely you got to ask some of the questions when you get song like Yesterday's, or a song, I mean, my go-to, and obviously the theme that I use in my radio commercials, and even the lead to this show, is Fight On. You've got to have those conversations at some point to say, like, wow, like, either this is really good, or there's a line in there that you don't like, or whatever. At some point you got to hammer those things out. No.
yeah, no, I mean, there's, you're especially when you're recording, everything's under a microscope. So, if a lyric or a delivery or a cadence to how the melody is going, just it kind of, you know, it, it flushes itself out pretty quickly. You just hear, huh, that that line right there. Well, maybe it shouldn't be I. Maybe that should be a we. Or maybe, is there a different word? Let's get out the thesaurus, and start looking for other words, because that word doesn't quite roll off the tongue. There's something about it that's hanging up. That was a lot of the work that the band did with Shane. But you know, our we all influence one another, as any group really would. And our overall message was that we really wanted something that was a positive framework for the lyric content, that was going to be motivating, not just a venting of what's negative in life.
Yeah, as I went back and made a few notes, I realized that the four of you guys collectively probably have the shortest names of any band I've ever seen.
Yeah,
We got Will Allen, Mike
Mike King,
King,
Nick
Shane
Boyd.
Geslin, who has the longest name out of anyone there, and Nick Boyd.
Yeah,
A lot of a lot of four-letter names. So yeah, I mean, it was so much fun to go back and re-listen to a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's in rotation on my phone whenever I'm working out, whenever I travel. It still plays. The next one I'll throw up here reminds me, I keep hearing Bon Jovi, and I'm not a big Bon Jovi fan. I really respect John Bon Jovi's voice. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously one of the strongest voices, that's ever been out there for a front man, but their slogan within Bon Jovi was "Don't bore us, get to the chorus." And I think this one kind of hits here. At the very least, there's not a big lead, a moderately softer song here. Hold
Yeah.
on. Oop, wrong button.
This time I'm feeling lost again, and there's nothing left to lose. This time you push me far away, long away from myself, away from you.
Yeah.
That voice is just awesome.
No, I think I was describing this to you earlier on a different conversation, that the great thing about Shane and his voice is that I kind of describe him as the working class hero voice. He's a bit raw, he's a bit gritty, he's a bit not like fully polished, and I always liked that. I always liked that there was an element of uh, not just such a graceful professional voice. It's got kind of more of the blue collar uh, tone to it. So
Yeah, I mean, my way of thinking, and again, I'm not a musician. I've never had um you know that level or that awareness, but I have a lot of musician friends. I mean, use Rich as an example. We argue all the time. He's trying to tell me that George Lynch is the greatest guitar player that ever lived, and then I just take another position because I want to fight with them. But when it comes down to it, for me, I don't, guys like, probably you and Rich will sometimes hyper focus on technique, or pure musicianship, where my benchmark for success with this stuff is, can you make me feel something,
yeah,
whether it's happy, whether it's angry, whether it's a memory, whether it's just something. If I feel something, like you can't tell me that most people understand 30% of what Eddie Vedder says because
yeah,
of his delivery, but everything that he delivers is just profound. I mean, in my opinion, and that was the kind of thing that Shane did, was just always made me feel something.
yeah. I think that's all you really need as a
Yeah.
singer, is that you're delivering a true, real message that will move people. And if you're capable of picking up on all the little tricks and the skill of songwriting for say pop music and creating hooks, then you can package that up and you can really make it something that hooks people's attention, grabs their attention. Um, in the end, though, the singers that I love most are the ones that are raw ones that are delivering their message with veracity, with some level of like conviction and a genuine, authentic delivery that's coming from their soul, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, it can't just be a front man. You've got to have, all the elements, you got to have the drummer keeping the beat. You've got to have, that bass player kind of, adding that color and kind of moving the song along. And then obviously you need at the very least, you need a decent rhythm and lead guitar element. I mean, in your band, you were the only guitar up there, so you kind of had to carry it and do all the solos. So
Yeah, I honestly like it. I've been in bands that I was the rhythm guitar player and there was a lead player. To me, there is typically two types of guitarists that are out there. There's the type that are the lead type, and people might think, oh, the lead, like the leader of the of the guitar section, the group. But in general, lead guitar means you know, the 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 solo, the kind of the higher octave, the stuff that carries out up on top. That's the stuff you're playing. All the there's usually fills or lead licks, or it's not just the solo, but it's kind of all the color that does a lot of talking. But a rhythm guitar, is really laying down the foundation of the landscape, what the song is speaking about without the voice there.
Yeah.
And for me, I always was far more motivated and excited about writing the rhythms, and the lead work was always a chore. That was something that I had to work at, not something that was naturally my style or my way of playing. I didn't even when I listen to bands, I don't typically. I'm not the kind who needs to rewind and hear the solo again. I'm more intrigued or excited by a great riff, and a great way of structure, or the arrangement of how they went from a riff to a verse to a chorus. And I really love those aspects: arrangement and riff writing, melody writing. But the lead stuff, I kind of did it just because I had to, and not because I necessarily was jumping for joy to do it. In fact, if I found a lead player to play with that I really where it was aligned with, I think that would be the ideal for a rock or a metal group, is to always have a rhythm and a lead, so that the rhythm doesn't drop out when a person's doing a solo, kind of a thing, for live performing sake.
Yeah, Kirk and James seem to do just fine going back and forth with the rhythm and the lead there. And just like, again, I'm not a guitar player, so I'm probably speaking out of my ass, but I think of lead as more single note playing, with rhythm is more chorded, more more volume of the notes playing. There's just more mass to what a rhythm player is playing, where the lead is kind of enunciating
Yeah.
the part of the song that they want you to hear.
Yeah, like James Hetfield, he's the predominant songwriter, in the case of what's being written on the guitar. But Kirk Hammett will come up with riffs, and he'll arrange those and figure those out. But Kirk's job is to give you that stuff that's over the top, that kind of gives you a little more character to all of it, and the solo being kind of usually the prize of that interpretation of what the rhythm is doing.
Now I can play any Cylinder song. I can play any. I mean, I was really fortunate that you thought enough of my opinion that you sent me a couple of your your post Cylinder tunes, and I'll throw a couple of those up here. But I'll make the assertion that I can put Cylinder music, and I don't want to say better, but I want to say that if at any point that kind of music that you guys produced found its way onto the radio, it would be welcome along Creed, along Alter Bridge, along pretty much anything of the genre. It was well produced, it was well put together, it sounded great. It always made me wonder, what, again, and this is going to be your opinion, but what separates the people who make it from the people who don't? Because there's I can talk about the world of racing, I can talk about the world of golf, and the people in racing that don't make it, there are a million, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but there are countless people who have all the talent in the world, but you'll never hear from them because they just don't have the financial backing to get to the place where they start becoming profitable.
Yeah.
What's the thing that separates, a band, like Cylinder, that made great music, just didn't really get that next step, versus the one that does?
Well, certainly money, if you wanted to distill it down. But most it's either money or a connection. I guess the connection might be the one that's first, because the connection could be the money. So it's there's some luck, there's all kinds of stuff that are involved, but it's also a business. I mean, what you're doing with a band when you're trying to make it is you're a business. You have to market the business. You have to make a great product. You have to continue to build your connections in the industry. You have to keep kind of scaling up in this form and scaling your audience, and utilizing all the best means that you have. I mean, at that time for Cylinder, we were right in the middle of when everything kind of was turning upside down with all the piracy of music, or the digitalization, and then the thievery that took the whole industry by surprise and wiped out. And it's still, I mean, to me, to this day, especially the rock genre, is completely crippled. Um, and it just hasn't been able to be the same that it was, say, back in the 80s, when record labels were making so much money from all the record sales that they could afford to have scouts going out and looking for bands out of whatever podunk dive bar they could find, that they could then put up and start selling records. When they lost the ability to sell records, it really upset the entire industry. And there was really not a lot of new music. There still isn't to this day. There's not a lot of new music in this genre, or the genres that surround this genre, and getting enough attention or finding new bands, because there isn't really record labels that are able to make money. There's just not enough of an audience for the way that it's working. But it's just become more of an independent scene. Now you're kind of running a small business. You got to leverage the online world, the social media platforms that we have. You have to, but the hustle is real. It's always going to be somewhat of the same. You're going to have to hustle the booking agents for the bigger venues to get an opening slot with a national act. You're going to have to do, build your core following in your local area. I mean, that's where you really cut your teeth, and know whether or not you have something that's worth a shit. Is you got to be able to make a following in your own little area. If you're unable to do that, then you really haven't proven anything. You don't really. It doesn't really make sense to scale it into the nationwide when you can't even do it in your local hometown. But I do think that if you can do that, you've kind of proven that, and then it's really just going to come down to how quickly you can make a connection to access the money. Like someone that would believe it. In that time, it would be a record label. They had the money to market you, to put you on bigger stages, or you either make the money yourself. Like for me now, as I own a business, I'm starting a new group, and I'll be financing, a lot of it. A lot of the industries turned into, you pay to play. You buy onto a tour. You want to do a 2-week leg with Alter Bridge, as you said, or some other band that's in your genre. You have to pay to be there. You pay to get there, but then the marketing that you get is what you're going to get in return, and you're going to hopefully be able to sell merch. You're going to hopefully build more following. People will buy either merch or your songs or your albums online. And it's it comes down to who you know and how quickly you can get access to money to pump your band and your songs out there.
Now, at one point, during the heyday, and I maybe have this wrong, but you guys were either going to do some opening, or you were going to record with Rob Halford. Do I have that right? Or there was some kind of connection to him back in the day?
Yeah, we opened up for him. It was like a big Bay Area competition that was done by the local radio station called The Bone. I think it's still around, 101.7 The Bone.
Like a Battle of the Bands kind of thing, or?
Yeah, and so they opened it up to bands to submit to open up for Rob Halford of Judas Priest. And when that happened, we submitted our package. You kind of turn in what you have, your bio, your videos if you have them, and your songs that you have. I think they just said your top 3, so we picked what we felt was our most popular 3. And then I don't know, I think there was 300 or 400 submissions from the Bay Area. They were all rock or metal, and we were chosen by Rob. And at that time too, he had just started a new label called I forget what it's something. I forget what it, Metal God Records, I want to say. And yeah, he was super welcoming to us. We went and played a huge show in San Francisco. I can't recall how many thousands of people, but it was a very big show for us. One of the biggest in the history of the Cylinder journey. But you know, we met with him, hung out with the band backstage after the show. They were, you know, just giving us tons of praise and, you know, telling us how we had such a big future ahead. And yeah, and Rob did discuss the idea of us coming onto his label and him recording us and kind of taking us under his wing. But you know, that there was a bunch of conversations that were exchanged with his manager after that show, you know, and the conversations that were had before that show and during the show. But it just kind of fizzled out, and he didn't sign anybody. He never actually did anything other than release his own recordings with his label. So I think that if I had to guess, he just was too busy to take on a kind of a pet project that we would be. And certainly in the industry and the way it would be a pet project. It would be a very big challenge to try and make it a successful venture for him from an investment standpoint. So
do you look back at that time? I mean, obviously things work out the way they work out, and you know, everyone gets married and has kids and, you know, kind of goes away from it. But do you look back at those times when you were really invested in music and have any what ifs, like, if we just would have done this instead of that, or if we would have, you know, does that exist in your mind?
Again, I think the industry was being crippled right when we were out. There was nobody getting signed to any, you know, great deal. There was nobody getting, you know, put out there in a heavy fashion in this genre. If there was, it was very little. And you know, it's, even if you're kind of playing at a high level and you're at professional grade, so to speak, it's still, you know, it's only the 1%, you know, or the 1% of the 1%. I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but it's a very finite amount of groups that are going to rise to sift their way up to the top.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just going to come down again to who's got luck in their favor, who's got the better connection, who's going to get access to the money fastest. And we just, you know, we kind of ran out of gas. We did it for 8 years, and you know, there was inner turmoil between us. You know, just as, you know, there can be with families. We were a very tight group of brothers, and you know, the longer we went and kind of became more established, and you know, the different, you know, struggles we had just in our relationships together. It just kind of reached a head, so to speak. So we ended up folding up shop, and we actually picked it back up for about a year, I want to say, but it kind of fell back into the same rut of some of the drama that we were having at that time.
Things work out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Out of this is maybe a question that I shouldn't ask, but you know, I like to poke and I like to pry, and you're more than welcome to not answer. But have you seen anyone make it that you looked at them and said, "There's no way that these fucking guys should be out there, and how the hell do they have that success?"
No, I mean, there was some metalcore bands, because that was the scene that was cropping up at the tail end of when we started kind of fizzling out. Metalcore was something that was getting some traction and getting some, you know, there was some labels picking it up, and there was some money and marketing being put into it. It was a scene. Avenged Sevenfold was kind of like the start of that little movement, I would say, even though some may not even call them metalcore anymore. more of a rock band now, especially now with their latest recordings. But I think that they were kind of the part of that, and then you ended up with bands that that are a part of that scene, the metalcore scene. Uh, Asking Alexandria, all these Acacia Strain, and there's a bunch of different bands that were merging out of that, and that became the new voice for that generation. It's almost like we were the tail end of a generational voice. It was the hard rock, coming from the kind of the Disturbed and Godsmack, and a lot of the bands that were being produced in that new metal zone. We were still kind of post that. We were right at the tail end of all that movement, and it started to shift hands. It was shifting into this, like the young high school age kids were not wanting that, because that was kind of, they're getting detached. That was my dad's genre. I want something different. So there was a natural movement away and into this metalcore thing that became the voice for the high school generation that was coming then. So yeah, it's one of those things where I can't undo what I like now. It's like I grew up listening to what I listened to. There were influences that I had and continue to have. I do explore in different genres. I do explore new bands and new styles. But even in my writing to this day, what I'm gravitated towards could even potentially be dated. It kind of embedded. I kind of created an identity out of what I was influenced by. And I might have some love for a metalcore band, but it's certainly not, it would be not the forefront of my what I feel to be most moving. So I don't know, hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's very insightful. And I mean, you know, I don't think there's a world of difference between, a musician like yourself and, someone that, becomes famous. I mean, yeah, there's going to be a level of experience that comes with it. And yeah, you get a little bit more accustomed to life on the road, and that's a totally different world than, being able to go to your own bed at the end of the night. But as far as like pure musicianship, I think that what separates the ones who make it from the ones that don't is the thin edge of the wedge. Are you okay if I play some of your individual stuff that
Sure.
happened after?
Yeah, go for it.
There's some really really good stuff in there that I don't know that anyone ever really had access to here. Hold on a second.
Oh yeah, what do you have, I wonder?
Are you real? Well, you can tell we don't really prep our guests here. So here you go.
Oh yeah.
Creaking like I'm slithered in the door. Shame.
Yeah.
Got the virgin and the
I love that.
Yeah.
Punish the
I
gods.
I would say that Cylinder was in every band too. I imagine there is a little bumping and rubbing off of one another, and everyone's influences, and everyone fighting to have a say. And with Cylinder, that particular group, there was Will, the drummer. He was very into the '80s glam rock and into the uh, you know. I would just call it the not as aggressive, the more fun rock,
Yeah.
that genre had. And then you've got Shane, he's coming from a town called Hollister, and that's kind of a rancher's town. A lot of country music is what he heard growing up. But he was also, we all were connected, to this hard rock or new metal kind of thing that was going on. Yet we come with our different little nuanced, aspects of our influences. Or Mike King, who was very metal oriented. He liked bands like In Flames and so forth. But he liked Chevelle. Chevelle was a band that we all liked together collectively. So we had some connecting bands or connecting genre, but we all had our own kind of wings that we stretched into more heavily. And me, I was a thrash metal guy. I was always into the Pantera and Metallica and Slayer and anything that was super heavy and aggressive that didn't go into the place where it was black metal or death metal. Like, to me, it goes too far. Like, it loses its sense of real raw aggression, and it kind of goes into more of a different stylistic way of
You
playing
think because
aggression.
of
I don't know how to put it.
because of the way the vocals are delivered?
That to me is, the falsetto and the way the Cookie Monster screaming, it doesn't move me. It feels
Yeah.
like it's a front. It feels like it's just a stylistic thing. It's basically like a trend for that type of music. But I would much rather have somebody singing from the diaphragm, something that's real, right from the fucking soul, than a gimmicky aspect to the way that you sing. So that always moved me more. So I didn't really get moved by the vocals. And then the guitar and drum, you can go to a speed at which, like, thrash metal was very fast, but it's very punk rock. It's very rebellious. It's very raw. When you get into the speeds that death metal or black metal are doing, it almost loses its raw. It almost loses its real aggressive masculine nature. It's kind of almost, again, it's like a gimmicky aspect in a weird way. It's, just because you can do a blast beat and do a double kick at 1,000,000 miles an hour, somehow it loses its luster of oomph for me. So, but I was always into heavy aggressive bands. So when I was playing with Cylinder, the material that everyone was liking was more of my softer stuff. I was kind of being more pulled into that side of my writing. But when I left Cylinder and I started playing with different people, even after leaving Cylinder, I really wanted to find people that were more aligned with the aggressive side. So I started finding those people, and I was
And how
able
much
to
does
flex
that
into
like
that.
how much does that start to influence you though, where it's like, I kind of want to write this heavy stuff and people just want to, they seem to respond to my more introspective stuff. So do I write more of that because that's what people want to hear, or do I just keep pumping out what I want to pump out and, fuck them if they don't want to listen? I mean, you would never say that, I know, but
Yeah.
you might think it, where it's like, listen, I'm writing this for me to write it, not because I want it to be popular.
Yeah. And that's where Cylinder kind of had a struggle at the end. Was the material that I was writing was heavy, and I just wasn't writing it. There wasn't enough material that I was writing that was pleasing to everybody. For the most part, too. The drummer and I, there was a struggling relationship. We were close as hell. He's still one of my best friends in life, but there was still a competition of dominance or something of that was going on. So it was we almost reached a stalemate. Everything I was writing wasn't being accepted. So it's like you're getting nowhere fast. You're just you're just not able to write songs because you don't like what's being written, and nobody's ready to jump on board and be a unit and make something happen. So it was a very big struggle. And then we kind of converted into, I kind of let off. I said, all right, you write some stuff, because he was learning to play guitar, and then we started playing some of his material, and then that kind of sparked more of his ego, and next thing you know, it's like I'm just trying to play something for the group so that we can continue to progress and continue to make songs, because my material was not being accepted. So I'll just eat crow here, and I'll play your material even though I don't like it, and but at least the group is moving forward.
Yeah.
But in reality, the resentment started building, and you end up in a place where you're unhappy with what's being played, and you're unhappy with the fact that you're not getting your outlet. You're kind of one of the nucleus reason for being there and being is to write music, to get that out. So I didn't have it anymore, and I started to lose ground with the whole group in terms of what I was writing. So you just start to feel like you're not in the right spot anymore.
Yeah. I'm going to play one more here, and then I've kept you long enough here. I'll start winding this down for you, but I'll throw this up, and then want to find out if there's somewhere that people can find your music, or what's going to be coming up here. But we'll play a little. Could I guess that you were maybe born in 1985?
1982 is mine. The singer was 5 years old, or 6 years old when he was 1985, and it's an experience of when he first felt he lost a big chunk of his innocence. That's why
Okay.
It had to do with his parents' relationship and his father, having multiple affairs and so forth. It was a very personal song to him and what he went through. It was the first real loss of innocence that he really can genuinely recognize in his life. And I think everyone could relate to that. We've all had our moments where we
that's pretty heavy
of innocence.
That's pretty heavy at any age, let alone at 5.
Yeah.
Jeez. But from that kind of turmoil comes a really, really, really great tune. I'll play this out a little bit further too.
Every time I close my eyes, walk into another fight. Guess he couldn't make things right again. I ran with the devil, I had a rebel, yeah. Since you disappeared, can you take away all this pain that festers in me? Can you break away this hate and take me way back to 1985?
Fucking great tune. I'm singing along as we're going here. Hearing it with slightly different ears, that of a poor little 5-year-old, but great tune. I mean, that vocalist was also another one that, again, just makes you feel something. And I was really fortunate because you sent me the demos. You had just recorded like instrumentals with drum tracks, and then I got to hear the next version, and then I got to hear the more produced version.
Cool.
Kind of see how that evolves, because I'd never really been part of that. So I'm really, really thankful that you were able to send that to me. But there's just there's so many great tunes that are out there, and again, like I referenced with racers or golfers, that unless you go looking, you're likely not going to see them. So, where in the future are people going to be able to find Nick Boyd's latest product?
Well, yeah, I would love to tell you that I have a spot for everyone to go to, but I don't. It's what I'm doing now is a new project, just getting it off the ground. We're doing songwriting sessions at this point, trying to build an album. It's something that you got to start with, that because if you're going to play and perform live, you got to have at least 45 minutes worth of material ready to go. And
Is that the goal, is to get back to live?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I have interest to hit the dive bar scene like we were doing when we were trying to hustle as hard as we could back in Cylinder days, but I would love to play a local show once a year. And I would love to maybe buy onto a tour with a bigger national act and go for 2 weeks on that, and enjoy that, where you're actually, getting good exposure with your music. And, and thankfully I'm in a different spot financially than I was when I was in my 20s. So I can, kind of finance a lot of the things that I wished I could have when we were younger that I can now. So we'll be doing that. I would love to go to Europe, but I never got to do that. We had opportunities to go. We got asked. We just didn't have the money. We were just so broke at that time in our 20s. We were scraping nickels together just to do anything, record, or get, you go play, and you'd be hustling your shirts, and at that time we were selling CDs. We'd be hustling at whatever we could to try and make enough money to stay at the hotel and pay for gas to get there. And
Yeah.
you know, uh, I'm thankful to kind of go at it from a different angle now as I'm older. So
If things hit with a buy on tour like that where you could open for XYZ, is that some sorry, yeah, XYZ. I have to remember Canada, we say Z, you guys say Z, so I want to make sure that
yeah, now
I
you
get
know that.
everything proper here. But can you actually break even? Can you make some money if the tour goes well, or is that kind of like laying the groundwork where you hope that somewhere down the road that it might open a door, or you might get enough downloads that 10 cents out of every dollar that Apple makes might find its way to your pocket?
I won't be looking at it as an investment, expecting a return or hoping for a return. I'm looking at it more from, I want to have a great experience, and I want to do a new experience, that I hadn't had when I was younger doing music. So uh, I don't really have the fantasies any longer of uh, of becoming a rock star. To be honest, we opened for a lot of national acts. We got to hang out and get, real conversations with people that were doing exactly what we were aspiring to do, that were, bona fide rock stars. Most of them were all struggling, very, very much so. I mean, it was a vagabond's life. It was a very much a gypsy way of living. You're going from town to town, you're touring your ass off. And that's really your bread and butter, how you're going to make your livelihood. And that's a hard lifestyle, especially to have a family or to carry on a relationship with someone. uh it's definitely a different way of life that lost its appeal near the end of Cylinder's period history. You get enough of those experiences with guys that you looked up to, and you get that conversation when they're like, yeah, no, they're just kind of burying their head in their hands going, it's a pretty rough life.
Yeah.
I go, a lot of them would say, I don't know if I would pick this if I had known what I was getting myself into. And
And
they're
that
not making riches. They're not millionaires up on ridge tops with mansions. They're literally struggling to pay a mortgage on an average home, and just having to live this vagabond life.
and that's a question I ask every week, and you kind of answered it before I asked it, is what would be one of the misconceptions that you were faced with that you want to dispel? And that's that pretty much hammers it home, is that even the guys that you would start to perceive as being like, quote unquote successful
Yeah.
are struggling way more than what you think.
Yeah, nah, it really took that. Like, what are we driving for here? What do we, what, you're working so hard to get where? Where are we going to get to? Yeah, we're going to be on stages in front of thousands potentially, but the sacrifice that comes with it may not align with what other goals you have for your life. Like, I want to have like I have a family now.
Yeah.
That was a big topic for some of the musicians, is that they had kids, but they don't get to see them. It's like, and they were tortured by that, and that so much of what, you think is what's motivating you to get, like, you're going to be in this blissful place being a rock star, and then finding out what it takes to be there and to stay there. And all of a sudden your motivation to continue with the band starts to drop down a notch. You're like, I don't really know if I want to do that life.
Yeah.
And then you're not as motivated to record and rehearse and play shows, you're like, I don't know if I don't know if I want to get where I am getting to or trying to get to, you know.
Well,
So
and I don't know if you experience the same thing. I have never made a decision within my business based on making money.
yeah,
I've always tried to make the decisions based on what's right for a customer or solving a problem. The idea of what you make from it never comes into play. And I'm sure you do the same thing with your home building. Like
I did.
you want to provide the best product. You know how to structure your business so that, you sell things for more than what you pay for them. But if you do enough right things, it should take care of itself. And I guess
Yeah.
in the music world, you have to first do it because you love it. If you don't love it, you won't make it to day two.
No, no. And with a business, yeah, I think, you know, uh, yeah, putting your client first, putting the money should be just a result of the right actions, right business practices, not a it's not the motivator. It's almost like the motivation should lie in how well you treat your employees, how well your clients are treated, the value that you're bringing to your clients, what you might need to increase, to improve the quality or the efficiency of the service or product that you're creating. Obviously you have to keep it within a range of reined in to where you don't just buy everything and you know snuff yourself out with overhead because you're trying to chase down all the things that would be great to have for your business or for your product.
Yeah.
Yeah, but regardless, the main motivator is what the clients. For us, we're a service business, so it's all about the client experience and how you can make that better, what systems you can put in play, what I don't care, what do I have to buy, what kind of software do we have to have. I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of money is the byproduct of doing your job right, doing what your business or your product or service is, doing it right.
Yeah, my father-in-law taught me, and you've just led me to another question, but my father-in-law taught me that business is the game we play, money is just how we keep score.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm curious now that you've structured, built, and are running a successful business, if you could take the knowledge that you have now as a business owner and go back in time to when you started in these bands, whether it's Cylinder or someone else, and be able to think about it, with more of a skill set of business, if that could have made a difference to the
uh,
success of the business or to the
it would
band.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowledge is king. I mean, really, it's just akin to someone trying to learn guitar on their own, self-taught. It's you might get there, like you will get there, but it's the duration at which it will take you to get there, to mastering that instrument. It'll take you forever to master that guitar if you're self-teaching. But if you have a teacher, or the teacher could be age, wisdom, having, run a business now. That's also been my teacher.
Yeah.
If you have more wisdom, more knowledge, yeah, you can shorten the duration or give more oomph or effectiveness to what you're doing. And yeah, I look back and I think about all the years that were wasted hustling down the wrong pathways for the band, that we could have been more focused on things that would have netted a better return on our time, a return
Sure.
on the investment of our time or our money or whatever it may have been. Yeah, so that's another piece that could come in. A great band could have, a band manager arrive at a very young age, and they have the knowledge and wisdom to guide that band. We were, trial and error, all of it.
Yeah.
And we were very, very self-motivated, extremely driven. And so we were just going to do it and do it however means and get as much help as possible. We were grabbing and hustling everything we could. And that helped, built a lot of what's used now in my own business. I mean, I think a big reason why I may have been started and was successful in business so quickly was that I had put in a lot of time and energy into the band, and that is a business, and it was a hustle, and I was learning a lot about what it is to hustle and to have a business and think about it from the right perspective so that it's headed on the right path. And it's yeah, sure. There's a part of me that wishes I could go back and be like, you guys, I look back and I go, it took us 2 years just to realize that you needed to focus on booking agents, but we would literally just, hope for a show, or
Yeah.
we would call another band, or we just didn't know who to even go to. It was like, you don't even know the avenues of which you should go to, but you get, we could have been playing more great shows if we had known the right hustle to make.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw one picture up and tell me what do you see here?
Yeah.
Is that do you see potential? Do you see youth? What does that bring back?
Yeah, no, all of it. It's not a one word. I guess you probably could figure out a way to distill it into one word, but
Yeah.
it's a paragraph or a novel. I don't know. Yeah, just it's nice to look back on your 20s and coming into your manhood. We were growing up together still, all of us, and but we were all we were a tight group. I mean, there was a period of time where we were very tight, and you were going through life together. So that's the one thing I would say, encourage people to be in bands, is that is a great little small nucleus community that you get to have, unlike other things.
Yeah, it's a little team that once in a while does a couple of road trips, and usually pretty good at consuming a beverage or two and having a good time. So
Yeah.
I guess it depends what you want to get out of it. But my man, I really appreciate you giving me the time. I hope that I'll get to hear the latest stuff when and if it ever becomes available. And I'm really thankful for what you guys put down. That's going to exist forever.
I'll absolutely stay in touch. I've always appreciated you and the support you've given me personally, and Cylinder and other ventures that I've had musically. And yeah, I'm hopeful that maybe we can get a dinner in or a beer in when you're here next with Rich, and maybe continue the conversations. I always love the conversations we find ourselves in.
Absolutely. Well, it's probably due for a trip. I mean, I'm not afraid to get on an airplane at any time, and it's a whole lot easier now. I honestly just connected through San Francisco. I can't remember where I was going. I think I had to go to Vegas for something, and even just walking through that airport, the last airport I flew through before COVID shut everything down was San Francisco. So going back there kind of gave me a little bit of a chill, but yeah, I'd love to get back there. The area around Pasatiempo, down in Santa Cruz, some of those seaside restaurants, and Scotts Valley, just beautiful. So obviously, very, very fond memories. It'd be nice to get there in the summer for a change instead of in the winter when it's so cold and wet. But you'll definitely be high up on my phone list when I get there.
Cool. Yeah. And I just want to give you some praise. I think you're an epic radio podcast host. I mean, I've actually jumped on another couple other podcasts and kind of saw the behind the scenes. There's a skill. It's definitely a very cool, interesting way of being put on the spotlight, having to carry conversation, having to keep interest live, and you do it well. So I'm stoked to get to see this, and
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I was actually talking to one of my counterparts from the radio station. I don't know if you heard the intro, but I used to do up until last week. I did a small segment on motorsports here on our local version of ESPN in Canada. It's called the Sports Network, TSN, where they yesterday at 9 a.m. pulled 6 radio stations off the air midday. There was no warning. There was no anything. Everyone went to commercial for the 9 o'clock news and never got a chance to come back. So, well, we had that going on today. Today's the day where I typically go from radio for 20 minutes, and then I do this for an hour or so. So yeah, we're kind of, a little bit in mourning because it was a lot of fun. I know my counterparts are going to they're going to land on their feet, whether it's moving to the internet, finding another radio station or another means. But I've learned so much from those guys on how to ask questions. But more than anything, this deal is pretty simple. Is what I do fairly well in work is that I'm I'm legitimately interested in people. While I don't like most people, I'm interested in them, but I'm really good at asking questions, and for the most part, I listen to the answers, which lends itself to the next batch of questions. So
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, totally stoked. Thank you for having me on.
anytime, man. Looking forward to seeing you in person again one of these days. And yeah, if anything ever comes up, don't be shy. I'd be happy to get you back on at any time.
Cool.
Okay, man. That was my good friend Nick Boyd. Awesome dude. Obviously, Nick and his guys. You know that they're brothers. You know that whether there were tensions, as Nick mentioned. You put any two of the 3-4 of those guys back in a room, and they go back to the olden days. But always thank you very much everyone for listening. Thanks Dean Blundell, the entire Crier network. Love getting to do this. We've got even more guests coming up here in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we don't have as much turmoil with the whole TSN thing, but I think I'm going to do a separate show on that. And you can stay tuned. I might just rant for an hour here next week. Hopefully you'll tune in.